Yes, folks, hello, welcome once again to Articlation Games and Collectibles. It's time for another action figure review here on the channel. And as you can see on the screen in front of you right now, today's installment is going to be taking a closer look at new Fresh Monkey Fiction, stroke Big Bad Workshop, Order of the Crimson Moon, Count Ironmoon figure. So stick around, I'm going to give you all the ups and downs, ins and outs that you need to know about this figure. So if you've been thinking about picking one up for yourself, you'll have good, thorough information to make a purchase decision around. I'm going to kick things off by jumping back in time and taking a look at the packaging on the day it arrived on my doorstep. Then we'll get into the figure himself, talk about the aesthetic and the visual experience, talk about the articulation and posability, have a good rundown of all the accessories and determine whether they're added value or not, and then pop him next to a couple of other Operation Monster Force figures, G.I. Joes, etc., to get a scale and see how he looks on display. And with all that said and done, you should have plenty of information lined up as to whether you want to crack your wallet or purse open for this guy. So let's get into it, and let's jump back in time to visit past Chris to take a look at the packaging, shall we? Here we go. Right then, folks, well, here is Count Ironmoon in packaging then, and it's pretty standard fare for the Fresh Monkey Fiction broad range of figures. So it's a box with a window showing off the character, all the goodies. Got the Order of the Crimson Moon logo at the top here, the name of the character, Count Ironmoon. The Crimson Moon logo, which is very evocative of another logo, which has made me interested in wave. All my figures that have arrived in today's wave, the heads are all looking elsewhere. Then on the back, we've got the lovely artwork there by Dana Black. Go follow him on Instagram. It's at Dana Black Forever. Tremendous artist. Very much in what he's been posting on Instagram of late. Shout out, Dana. But then we've got some lore text at the top, some biographical information you can read if you feel inclined. Then we've got the cross-promote figures wave, the logos of the companies involved. Then on the sides, we've got the logo again, Crimson Moon, the more of Dana Black's artwork, the logo, Count Ironmoon. There you go, there's a little peek for those who are mint in box or interested to know the peg presence of the figure, but I'm not mint in box, I'm going to get Count Ironmoon, otherwise known as Baron Ironblood. I think I'm calling him Baron Ironblood for the duration of the video. I'm going to crack him open, get good hands-on, get some man-child playtime in, get him posed up, see what he looks like next to figures, photos, just generally have a good old mess around with him. Review notes and come back and let you know those review notes. So stick around. Future Chris is going to be with you in 3, 1. Okay then, folks. Well, let's get started looking at the aesthetic, the visual experience of the figure of the Count Ironmoon character. Although, as I mentioned, I think in the intro there, or certainly up to this point, I'm going to struggle not to say Baron Ironblood through the duration of this video. Because, of course, aside from the head sculpt, the design of the uniform is clearly evocative of the old Action Force Baron Ironblood character, and that's one of the main areas of appeal. Even that logo, as I was laughing and giggling about when I was looking at the packaging, is, similar enough but legally distinct enough from the Red Shadows logo from back in the day. And I will confess that the white uniform is proving to be a struggle in my little action figure studio lighting rig setup. I've had to turn the brightness all the way down, so I apologize if it looks a bit darker than usual, folks. So moving in a bit closer then, let's have a look at the finer detail. Let's start with the head sculpt that comes with the figure, although I'm sure most of you all know the direction of travel here. This is not the head sculpt I'm planning on using with this body. But it's pretty good. It's quite narrow, but the sculpt of the facial features are decent. The chin, the cheeks, the nose, it's all good. The paint applications on the eye patch, the eyes, the eyebrows, and the hair is good. Got some sculpted detail in the hair as well, which is kind of molded to suit the use of the hat, which we'll look at in a little bit. It's okay. It's obviously more evocative of the Black Major than it is of the Baron, which many of you like me will want to do with a bit of kit bashing across this wave. But that's all fine and dandy. What I will say is that the head on the original digital renders just seemed to be a little wider, a little bit more proportional with the body. This is really quite narrow, and had a bit more of a kind of grisly vibe to it, like a little, a more sort of grisly war veteran, older vibe. And this seems to look a little bit younger, a bit more narrow. The chin is nowhere near as kind of square-jawed as the digital render promise was. So, yeah, make of that what you will, I suppose. But I'm a bit like, I don't know. It just looks a bit small, the head, and disproportionate, especially when you put the hat on him. And then moving down into the uniform, I think this bottom coat piece, we've seen numerous times before in the line on the, like the, what do they call the Red Shadow Troopers? They've got their own name with the Operation Monster Force first wave. I think this bottom piece is the same there, but you'll see it's like this kind of rubbery uniform overlay over the top of the book underneath. I do wish this collar came up the neck a bit further. I don't know, I've tried pulling it down, I've tried sort of heating it and moving it about to try and get more of that collar showing. It looks better on the Major Noir than it does on this one, on the Count Ironmoon. So we can see the collar with the bits in there, but it is, it's there, it's underneath. And it's all, it's all layered on. It's not paint applications here. That's a piece there that's sculpted over the top with your texture detail in here, and then things like your pockets and whatnot. Having this rubbery piece over the top does mean that your whites differ a little bit from the body to the little jacket piece coming down over the crotch area here, and the whites of the arms and the legs, which is a bit of a shame. It's as you can see, it's very, very shiny, being this kind of rubbery piece. But you've got that nice texture detail to give it some depth, and then things like the belt and the gloves and the boots are a nice black, certainly suitably kind of shiny, leathery black on there. You can see the leathery texture on the belt. Little kind of logo here on the belt buckle. Might have been nice to have a paint application on that. The boots, again, that we've seen before. Turning him around, you can see more of that texture detail down the back. Well, at least I hope you can. The lights are making him very bright and reflective. But you can see the texture detail in the arms, down the jacket here, and then the texture detail in the legs, giving it depth and giving it some nice 6-inch kind of personality. No, aesthetically, it's all right. I mean, obviously, the main attraction for someone like me, and I'm sure for many of you, is the fact that you can now kit bash up to a Baron Ironblood from the old Red Shadow days. What I will say is that if I compare it to the Operation Monster Force figures that I've got, like the, oh God, what are the Red Shadows called? Sleepwalkers, Nightwalkers, something, Sleepwalkers, it is. They've got a nice wash on the older figures and little touches like little paint applications on the studs of the pockets and stuff, which this figure doesn't actually have. I kind of get it, like they're trying to sort of go for that all-white experience, but it means, I'll pop it next to one of them later on in the video, but it just means that some of the depth that you had with the earlier Operation Monster Force isn't quite present with this guy. So while I'm aesthetically, very nostalgically in love with this figure for what it's opening up in terms of my imagination, around having a Baron Ironblood in my collection, I gotta say, it's aesthetically not up to the same standard as some of the earlier figures. Little touches like the belt buckle being sculpted on the older Sleepwalkers, and like I say, the washes and dry brushes that are on there, that giving it much more depth. Paint applications on things like buttons and studs, and a bit of a wash over the legs and things, it just isn't there. So interesting, they've made that decision for some reason, but doesn't compare quite as favourably, I don't think, which is disappointing. I'm sad to say that, really, because, Baron Ironblood, isn't it? So I am going to give him a thumbs up, but with those caveats. I wish this collar was a little bit higher up, or this kind of rubbery piece was a bit less shiny somehow, and that some of that extra attention to detail stuff that really captured my imagination with their first Operation Monster Force wave was present with this figure as well. But I still like it. I can't help it. But just to reiterate, I think my nostalgia, my desire to kit bash a Baron Ironblood, maybe kind of hinting my view a little. So there we go. Okay, well, there's the aesthetic, there's the visual experience. Let's now take a closer look at the articulation and posability, shall we? And before I get into that, folks, I'll just say that it's standard Fresh Monkey Fiction stroke Big Bad Workshop articulation. So if you've had an Operation Monster Force, Soldier of Fortune, or whatever in your hands, you'll be familiar with what's on offer. So if you want to skip this section, I've put timestamps in down below. You can jump to the next chapter where we're taking a look at the accessories and value. However, if this is the first Fresh Monkey Fiction Big Bad Workshop figure review you've ever seen, or you're just interested to know if there's any unique quirks with the articulation on this guy, stick around, I'll run you through it, and I'll get started up top with the head. And here we've got a ball in the base of the skull, a ball at the base of the neck, and a hinge in the centre of the neck. This gives us pretty decent down forward like that, pretty decent back and up like so. Full 360 all the way around. X-assist, you can tilt and swivel to your heart's content. Lots of range of motion up top there. Of course, there's nothing restricting your movement. Moving further down into the shoulders, we've got a butterfly joint here, a peg and a hinge, so you can shuffle back and forward And even though the butterfly joint is underneath this tunic piece over the top, you can movement's pretty good. Go all the way around, full 360, shape him out like so. Got the swivel at the top of the bicep and tricep, pinless double elbow that'll get you up to there, and then pegged in hands that can move around at the point of the wrist. And these grippy hands that were on him out the box have got forward and back hinges. But there's a number of hand swaps in there with either forward and back or up and down, depending on which hand it is. Moving down into the torso, I can't see underneath, but I think it's a barbell across the front and a ball joint in the waist there. So you've got some crunch forward, you've got some backwards, you can swivel and rotate him like so. And as you can see, the way is two separate pieces, the top and the bottom piece there. So your articulation, your belt and stuff sort of moves with the torso. Going down into the legs, so your groin and your hips is a drop-down joint there on a ball, so you can come forward that far. Russian ballet splits out to there, good range of motion in that space. Then you've got the swivel at the top of the thigh. You've got a pinless double knee that'll get you up to there. Foot at the top of the boot, and then a hinge and rocker on the ankle stroke feet. So the count moves pretty good. He's a little bit creaky. Had to, and he was very stiff out the box. Had to apply some hairdryer heat on him to get him going in the first instance, but just the once, he's up and running now. It still creaks a little bit. I don't know if you could pick it up on the mic. I don't know if my mic was catching the creaky noises when I was articulating him just then, but yeah, everything's all good and fine. The only thing I'll probably point out is that sometimes this little jacket piece that comes down the front here can get in the way a wee touch, but they have put cuts in at the sides articulation. But yeah, everything's fine, all good and dandy, up to kind of contemporary standard. And I wasn't finding myself particularly limited in terms of my imagination when I was taking some photos with him yesterday. I was able to pose him up in the various poses that I was seeing in my mind's eye. All good and well. So yeah, thumbs up on the articulation for sure. Okay, well, so that's articulation. Let's now take a look at the accessory selection, shall we? And the first item out the gate here to take a look at is his hat. He's got a hat. Obviously a key part to the visual identity there to kind of complete that whole image. We've seen this hat before with the general figure from Operation Monster Force. In fact, this piece, the logo on the front here, as was the case with the general, is a separate piece that plugs into a peg hole at the front. And one thing you might be mindful of, it swivels a bit, so keep an eye on that. You can see the same sculpt, same design as the hat that was included with the general. It's a nice cap, does the business, looks how it's supposed to look. The red is a bit different to the red on the main body there, but it's not too problematic. But yeah, nice sculpt, good contours, good sculpted details there to give it some life. Of course, it finishes the image off. All I will say is, as I mentioned before, once you put that hat on, it makes that kind of narrower looking head stand out even more. Look at this, kind of out the side here. A little headed fella. I don't know what to say. Then the Count has got this kind of energy whip thing going on here. Again, a little callback, a little Easter egg nod towards the Baron from the Red Shadows, who was trying to train troops by whipping them. But this is a modern twist. It's got this blue energy crackle thing going on. A good sculpt. I mean, the whip is just like a big metallic whip in the middle there in a grey sculpted plastic. But these little energy crackle pieces are really quite nice. Lovely sort of blue translucent colour on them. And then the handle, it's sculpted in this shape. There is a little bit of movement on it, but not a great deal. So you are kind of constrained to this shape. It's not wired or anything, which is a bit of a shame, but still a nice piece to throw in nonetheless. And then you've also got the coiled up version of the whip as well, which has got a little kind of a storage hook on his belt just here on the side. It's okay. It's a bit loose. I keep knocking it off, to be honest. But it's all right, for shelf display. It's just a bit awkward sometimes when you're trying to do things. Photograph him while he's wearing it. Just like I say, I just keep knocking it off. Obviously, the energy crackles are not present on the coiled up version, but you can see the sculpted detail in there just the same as with the, I don't know what you call it, extended out whip. Flicked out whip. Flicked out? Let's do that. Let's say that. Flicked out. Then he's got his handgun, his little pistol here. He's got a kind of science fiction-y twist to it, a little science fiction vibe. Definitely pulls back nicely to that sort of 80s Red Shadow, weird and wonderful pistols kind of thing that was going on, which is nice. It's a single piece of molded plastic. It's got a slight sort of metallic wash over the top of it as well, or dry brush probably actually more accurately, which gives it a little bit more depth, a little bit more flavour. Lovely little sculpted details in there. It's nice. It's got this, I like this little sci-fi twist that they put on there. So And that's got like a little holster piece on his belt. There's this little loop holster here on the right side, right hip. Pistol. And to go along with that pistol, we've got a couple of effects here. These come as standard with the Big Bad Workshop Fresh Monkey Fiction lines. We've seen these numerous times. I've got a bucket ton of these already. The little post-firing smoke effect that plugs into the barrel, and then the firing effect itself, which plugs into the barrel in that nice translucent reddy orange kind of thing going on. Then we have a wide selection of hand swaps as well. Again, this is kind of the standard for the Fresh Monkey Fiction Big Bad Workshop stuff. So we're seeing it with the Crimson Moon. It was the same with the Operation Monster Force and the Naughty and Nice Santas as well that I've got. They've all got buckets on of hand swaps in. So always great to have a wide selection of hand swaps like this to open up the world of possibility when it comes to the way you might want to pose, display, photograph your figure. And it's the fairly common use selection. We've got two kind of what I call the evil claws. We've got two trigger holding, pistol holding hands, two closed fists, and then the kind of pointy commandy finger there. One thing I will say though is that the evil claws look a little bit small. I can't explain it, but they look a little bit small in his hands. But otherwise, a useful selection of hands, and I'm never going to complain when someone throws in a ton of hand swaps. And then finally, we've got this foot stand, Order of the Crimson Moon foot stand that comes, that's come with all the Crimson Moon figures. I've meant to mention earlier, I've not gone for the full wave. I've just picked up a small handful that appealed to me. But here's the foot stand, two pegs, the Order of the Crimson Moon logo. Again, though, I can't help but make a comparison. The Operation Monster Force foot stands are got much more personality, a lot more character with that kind of gravestone vibe. And they put the name of the figure on the front of the foot stands with Operation Monster Force, whereas this is just a standard. They've standardized and done the same foot stand with all the figures. Now, that doesn't matter too much to me. I don't use the foot stands a great deal anyway, but it might matter to you. You know, if you're building up a display and you've got your Operation Monster Force and your Crimson Moon next to each other, it's a little bit inconsistent on that front. No, I think it's a very solid accessory selection. I'm always happy to have hand swaps. I think his weaponry is interesting, it's intriguing, but obviously also leans into that nostalgia, similar but legally distinct stuff that they're doing, calling back to the Red Shadows. The gridiron sculpts on the weapons are always really, really nice. So overall, it's a solid thumbs up on the accessory selection for sure. No complaints on this front. I like what I'm getting. The only thing, as I say, is that the foot stand is not as exciting or engaging as the foot stand with the Operation Monster Force, and I think that might affect the way you look at displaying them. You know, because it's if you want to mix and match and get them all in together, kind of thing. But you'll let me know in the comments down below how you feel about that. Okay, so there we go. There's the accessory rundown. Let's now take a look at the count here next to some other figures, shall we? And I'll start with the Sleepwalker here, because I've already kind of mentioned it. You can see the difference, really, with... I've tooled him up with this Valaverse AK-47. I've not bought the Crimson Moon version of this character. I just thought it was good enough for my purposes. But can you see the difference there in like the paint applications and the buckle and the dry brush and the wash over the top of the uniform, just really giving it some depth compared to this guy? It really stands out when you get them next to each other, in my humble opinion. And while we're looking at Sleepwalkers, here's the black version. He's a bit dusty from being on the shelf there, but here's the black version of the character, the sort of leadery dude. And again, you can just see you see the difference. It really stands out when you got them next to each other, folks. Here he is next to Major Noir from the same wave, and in a moment, I'm going to do the head swap. I'm going to do the head swap. Here he is next to General Brown from Operation Monster Force, and again, you can just see that extra little bit of detail, like the painted buttons and studs. Here he is next to a G.I. Joe Classified Night Series Big Ben, who I've been subbing in as a, the Action Force Eagle, the squad leader, SAS squad leader figure. And then finally, here he is next to the retro card back, G.I. Joe Classified Cobra Commander. And here we go. Here is the figure with the head swap from the Major. So you take the Major Noir head, pop it on your Count Ironmoon, and that's your Baron Ironblood. And then you pop the head from the Count on the Major. I keep wanting to say, so Baron Ironblood and the Black Major. So that's your Black Major with the head and the hat from this figure. I'll obviously revisit this when I review this figure over here. He's not quite a full Black Major because the Black Major didn't have the long black coat, but it's pretty close, that, isn't it? Also lost the magazine off that pistol somewhere. But the one thing that I haven't got is, oh, there's the magazine. The one thing I haven't got is the helmet, the Baron Ironblood's helmet. That comes with the Legionnaire, which is like a zombie werewolf figure. And I just, honestly, folks, I wasn't all that interested in the zombie werewolf, and I wasn't going to pick up a whole figure for a helmet. So I've got my fingers crossed that maybe the helmet will turn up in like an accessory pack, the like of which they've done with Operation Monster Force in the past. But there's your Baron and your Major. And here we go then, folks. Here he is making his way around on the turntable. I'm just live and actively fiddling with the lights. He was shining very bright white on the camera there. So again, apologies if it's a bit darker than you're used to with my reviews. And overall, yeah, it's a good figure. I mean, they've certainly leaned into that kind of 80s Red Shadow nostalgia bait very, very well, and they've captured my imagination greatly with that. And I'm very happy to have something I can kit bash up to make that character for my collection. It's just the little things. A few of the little things have added up. Like I said before, I am a little disappointed that the quality of the paint applications, those extra little touches that we see with Operation Monster Force, don't seem to be present with this character. That's bugged me a little bit, but overall, it's solid. Yeah, it's a sound figure, and it's definitely, it's definitely doing the, like I say, the nostalgia baiting that they were looking to do with it, and it's worked. I'm here, I bought it, I own it, and I've been playing around with it a lot, chopping and changing. In fact, prepping to do the reviews today after I was doing loads of photographing and playing with them yesterday has been difficult because I've kit bashed around and swapped all the parts so much. I was like, which one came with which? I was an absolute mess across my desk, and still am actually right now. But yeah, I think I'd recommend it if you're looking for that 80s thing. You've got the nostalgia as I do for the old Action Force looking figures. Then it's the best you got in 6-inch at this moment in time anyway. But it's solid. Yeah, it's a solid figure. It's just not quite up to the standard the Fresh Monkey Fiction has set their stall out with some of the experience I've had with Operation Monster Force. So tiny bit disappointed, but overall I think I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Absolutely. So there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I think this is due to ship in North America imminently as well. Thanks to Kapow Toys for their expedient and quality service there. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Obviously, if you have found this useful, then give us all the YouTubey stuff. Hit the thumb button, do the subscribe, etc., etc. But all that remains to say is hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week. And coming back around again for another video around these parts sometime soon. And there we are. Once again, I'm finishing the video with figures back to the camera. Such a pro. There we go. Okay, take it easy, folks.